Aside from the curiosity factor in this book, the weird printing of the text designed to enhance the subject itself of mazes, if you just focus on the topic by itself, it is awesome, and it made me conceive the entire history of puzzles differently. So if you want to get a basic idea of the book and want to understand a little bit more about mazes, stay tuned. Welcome to Biblical Cultists, where I review books that I find interesting in the topics of religion, philosophy, history, and fiction. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, and comment on the video. Doing these things really helps the channel out, and I appreciate it when you do so. Also, you can follow me on X if you want to exchange with me directly there, and also you can check out my merch store if you're interested in promoting the channel. In this episode, I'm going over Follow This Thread by Henry Eliot, and it's from Three Rivers Press, 2018. And just so you know, I will place in the pinned comments my associate's link from Amazon, in which you can see all the books I've reviewed here, including this one, and the channel gets a small percentage, so it really helps out and it doesn't cost you anything to do so. It's not only books, it also applies to anything that you get through that link. So doing these things helps for me to be able to finance it and continue producing content. And again, I greatly appreciate it. So you can get this edition or any other version they have there. The first cool thing to consider is the difference between a labyrinth and a maze, which I was not really deeply familiar with before I read this book. So a labyrinth is one single line, a single path that has twists and turns, but it will get you to one specific goal. It's very straightforward, it just has a lot of turns. Whereas a maze has false turns, dead ends, and also the convoluted twists and turns. So it is the element of the trickery, the element of danger involved in the maze that makes it fascinating. And to me, it has enhanced my view of the book itself as a concept. A few years back, I wrote a song comparing books to labyrinths. The way that you go through script and lines, and you are basically needing a thread. And that concept to me was very cool to consider. But now, looking at this book on mazes, I really ponder whether or not the best books would be closer to a maze. Now, of course, it's an issue of taste. A lot of people would hate a book that it's structured like a maze. And I also believe that this would work primarily on a fictional kind of structure, because if you're writing theology or philosophy and you make it into a maze, it actually defeats the whole purpose of the book, which is to coherently and logically present a case, an argument, and present it in a way that convinces you of the position. So obviously, in a theological point of view, it would be a self-refuting book if it's a maze, if it takes you to wrong places. A lot of dead ends in a fictional story, or false turns, or paths that eventually lead you nowhere, those would be very interesting in a book if it's done right. Now, of course, if it's done just for the sake of it, then it could be very annoying to read. But just considering the notion of comparing a book to a maze vis-a-vis a labyrinth, to me is a cool thought. So the book mentions Giovanni Fontana, which is pretty cool because the book is claiming that the earliest surviving maze that we have is from one of his technical drawings, and we're talking about the 15th century. So as a sort of mage, a sort of occultist, a lot of his writings were puzzles, and amongst them you have this maze he's referencing. And the book actually takes a lot of these mazes that he references and places them in the book as part of a thread as the book goes through. And just in case you're not familiar, the cool thing about the reading of the book, which may seem gimmicky to some people, but I actually found it enjoyable, is the way the book kind of twists and turns as you go along. So sometimes the book is upside down, sometimes it's sideways, that kind of thing. But it's not very difficult to adapt to it, and it's a very easy, short read. You should be able to read it in 1 or 2 sittings if you dedicate time to it. The book also, as it goes through a historical presentation of mazes, mentions the fact that a lot of the Norse would utilize labyrinths in particular to trap spirits within. So that's very cool how even the ancients connected geometry and theology, which a lot of ancients did. Religion, to be complete, would have to have all elements: architecture, art, poetry, philosophy, epistemology, eschatology, and geometry, and astronomy, etc. So you would have all these arts and all these sciences all together in one system. Now, of course, the big philosophical question is life a maze? Or is it more like a labyrinth? And believe it or not, this, to me, answers a lot of great theological questions. I would argue that some religions would posit that life is a maze, and you will be placed in a position in which you can either have a very complicated maze or a very simple maze. Some religions would argue all mazes are the same. Some would argue they're different. And either way, you could get lost. There will be strange turns or false turns and also dead ends. And you would have to recapitulate and start over again and make a separate choice, etc. So that life is seen as a test of sorts. Whereas if life is a labyrinth, it really means that you start from one point and it has a lot of twists and turns, but you will reach your objective. And I think that's an interesting way of looking at the whole notion of universal salvation. Universalism, as it's called, which is the belief of some people, especially in ancient Christianity, that everyone would be saved because all paths lead to God, which eventually this belief was declared a heresy. But a lot of new religions, or what I would call the Reconstructionist religions, love universalism because it sounds very nice. The idea that everyone can be saved no matter what you do. So the idea that it's a labyrinth is a fun way of presenting it. A lot of those religions would rather see the world that way. Don't worry, you're going to feel you're lost, but it's all an illusion because you're going to get to your objective no matter what. Whereas if life is a maze, you could get lost forever and never escape. Or you could take the wrong direction and end up in a bad place. So using that in the form of an analogy is a very cool way of looking at it. Now, in a very small area of the book, it mentions the chakra vyuha. Now, this is very cool because most people in the West are not familiar with this. And this is the formation of chariots in war in which an enemy is entrapped within this labyrinth of other chariots so that while he is running through, he eventually gets trapped. And Kshatriyas, which is the name for warriors in the Sanskrit language, would study ways of escaping the chakra vyuha. So the fact that he is incorporating this notion of even a labyrinth of sorts used in warfare and how human beings seem to be obsessed with this notion is very cool to consider. Now I'm going to quote a small part here of the book. I sometimes do that in certain books, and I will do it here because I think it will give you a cool presentation of the mood of the book. Our perception of reality is based on shadows thrown into the wall in front of us. It is the role of the philosopher to break free, says Plato, and struggle out of the cave, up a steep and rugged ascent into the sunshine. There, once the philosopher's eyes have grown accustomed to the light, he will perceive truth in the nature of reality. So the cool thing about that presentation there is that even the philosophers would use this kind of analogy of mazes and labyrinths to describe the escape from darkness or ignorance into gnosis, into knowledge. And when you really think about it, you realize how powerful it is conceptually and how it can actually apply to so many things. And I appreciate the book allowing me that opportunity to see it in that particular fashion. I've never even considered having books on maces and puzzles, and now it's something that I've become interested in. So I appreciate that. Now, a lot of the book actually has to do with the designing of maces itself. And it goes through a history of them and presents a few of the famous ones and even modern ones that are generated mostly for entertainment, like the corn mazes, etc. And I've been to a few of those actually. And they're always fun. You're with your family and you go through them, and kids love it because they feel they're lost, but it's safe because it's a corn maze and you can get out of it at any point. Now, some designers of mazes would design them almost as an esoteric spiritual practice, and they would design them in a way that you felt incapable of escaping. You could go in and never leave. And this notion, of course, is very, very cool. And the whole dynamic of an artist of that fashion, because to me, a designer of a maze could be seen as a mathematician, but he's also primarily an artist. And just looking at these art forms and large form in which you can walk through them is a very cool way of looking at art as well. So all in all, the book is a great presentation of the story of mazes, and also probably a doorway into the topic itself that encourages you to continue in the study, continue in the analysis, and gain an appreciation for the art form itself. So all in all, great book. I highly suggest you check it out. Check out the link on the pinned comment. And if you have any questions, or if you want to suggest any books for me to review or to read, I'm always open to it. So hopefully you enjoyed the review. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, and comment on the video. Thank you for being with me. See you next time.